water. Romans chapter 6 verse 3 and 4 talks about our being buried with Christ in or through baptism. So it is a thing that God uses water to actually serve as a part of the visible, external visible sign of his washing and cleansing of us from all of the things that we've dealt with in the past. You see, when the children of Israel, when God brought the children of Israel out of Egypt, Egypt is a type of the world where there was sin, where their appetites were never satisfied, where their work was never done. When he brought us into the promised land, it was a place of divine rest so that we could come back into that place of rest where God left it at the end of creation. And God rested, and then he ceased from his labors, but man came into strife. When we left outside of the presence and the will of God, whenever we leave out of God's will, we're going to enter into an Egypt, a world, a slave type experience. And when God brought the children of Israel through the Red Sea was the first biblical prototype of a baptism. God brought them through the water. It represented the cleansing of their minds and purging of their consciousness from sin and enslavement that they knew in slavery, so that they wouldn't take a slave mentality into a promised land where now they were free people. God began to wash them in the waters. He brought them through the waters. And isn't it something how God can wash and cleanse your past when he brings you through the water, and he'll drown the army, the very things that are attacking you, the very things that's chasing you, the very things in your ancestry that you haven't been able to get rid of, but through the washing of the water of the word. Here, this Red Sea, this thing will drown the very thing that have been enemies to you, trying to mess your life up all of your life. God says, I will close it. I've already fixed your past. I've already dealt with that. That is an accomplished fact now. Don't even have to deal with that. You're dealing now. What you're struggling with are memories of something that I have already dealt with. And it's the memory that's causing the convulsion. It's the memory that's causing the feeling to rise back up again. And the devil is fooling you through an emotion, through a feeling where you thought that you had been delivered, but in your mind, then the devil said that if you were delivered, you wouldn't feel this way. But the devil is a lie. You're having a flashback. You're having a memory of something God has already drowned in the sea, and now you're having nightmares of somebody chasing you that's already dead. That thing has already been dealt with. God drowned it. Isn't it something how God can use the water to cleanse one thing, purge another thing, and then kill something else? And while we came out clean, the things that went in that were chasing us never made it out through that baptism experience. So we are buried with him in baptism, so that there are some elements of our nature that should never rise up. So that when we are baptized, we are not saying that I'm going down a dry center and coming up a wet center. I went down a dry center, but when I came up, there was something in the power of the water that washed me. I had an experience with the Spirit of God that changed me. It wasn't just the water, it was the Spirit. The water's a type of the Spirit, and he changed me, and he washed me, and he cleansed me, and he made me brand new. In this book of John here, just alone, you'll notice that in John chapter 1, it talks about Jesus being baptized by John in water. In John chapter 2, it talks about Jesus working his very first miracle of turning water into wine. Isn't it something that the very first miracle that Jesus would even choose to do, he did it by turning water into wine. In John chapter 3, he meets a brilliant man by the name of Nicodemus, one of the scholars and teachers, and he comes to Jesus by night. And he asks Jesus a question, what must I do to be born again? And Jesus said that you must be born again. You must be born of the water and of the Spirit. In John chapter 4, we see that Jesus meets a woman at Jacob's well. A well is a place of drawing water. So that he would give her this living water, because she finds that she's been married 5 times and the husband that she's shacked up with now is not hers, because she's been thirsting for the wrong thing, and she's been thirsting for something that she thought that men could quench and only God could quench it. And so she meets this water at a well so that she can find the thing that she's been continually pursuing. Now she finds it in water, in Jesus, who says that he is the living water. In the 5th chapter of the book of John, it talks about where a man is healed at a pool called Bethesda, where at a certain time of year there was a fable that said an angel came down and troubled the water, and the first person in got healed.